Thanks again for coming. It's really wonderful to see such a lovely turnout. The contest was lovely. There's an incredible amount of wonderful pieces. I want to let you know that the winner of the art contest was, in English it's Les Sale, and I'm going to try to say it in Navajo, Sepega Homwata. You can correct me, it's okay.
I think Sarah Ganson, actually.
Narragansett.
She's near.
Piano piece by Kimoni Burke. The winner of the poetry contest for The Underside of Blue, a Renku, was by San Juan College Poetry Workshop and edited by Tacey Atsidi. And the winner of the blog contest was Indigenous Destinies and Dams by Brian King. So the Navajo rug that was specially created for this event will go to Brian King, and $100 will go to each of the other contest winners. So big round of applause for them.
So Hi, my name is Liz. I'm from Warner, which is in New Hampshire. I am a Abenaki. I would like to welcome you all here to Abenaki country, and I'd especially like to welcome our Dene relatives. So, Uli Payon and Dakina.
Good afternoon. My name is Melanie Taylor, and I'm the Chair of Native American Studies here at Dartmouth. It's my great pleasure to welcome you all here today. Thank you to the Blackhawk Singers for that really wonderful opening to our gathering, and I think a really appropriate and spirited reminder of the Abenaki lands on which Dartmouth College rests. I'd also like to thank our distinguished guest speakers, some of whom have traveled terrific distances and across many rivers and time zones to be here with us today for this really important conversation. I also need to thank our generous sponsors, without whom this event would not have happened. Here at Dartmouth, the Office of the Provost for Academic Initiatives, the Native American Studies Program, the Native American Program, the Office of Sustainability, Dartmouth Toxic Metals Superfund Research Program, and beyond our campus community to Vermont Water, a local water filtration company. Finally, most importantly, I want to thank Farina King, without whom this event literally would not have happened. You'll hear from her in a minute as she introduces today's guest speakers and moderates the event. She is our 2015-16 Charles Eastman Dissertation Fellow in Native American Studies, which is a pre-doctoral fellowship program here, although Farina recently earned her PhD from Arizona State University in History. So, yes. So I'm pleased to introduce her to you today in a moment as Dr. King, which has a really nice ring to it. Heard that somewhere. Farina came to me earlier this year with an idea for this conference, which started out as a fairly modest plan to bring together a few individuals working to understand and ameliorate the impact of the Gold King Mine wastewater spill in Navajo community. Quickly, though, the scope and the impact of the event really blossomed, and it became impossible not to think about and try to represent similar crises closer to home here at Dartmouth, in Burlington, Vermont, most recently in Merrimack, New Hampshire, and of course we're all thinking about the ongoing crisis in Flint, Michigan. Ultimately, we can only do so much in our limited time here today, so we'll talk mainly with several representatives here from the Navajo Nation, as well as a local spokesperson for a Vermont group. But our hope is that the discussion today will continue long after our 2 hours here have concluded, and that the geography of influence will be as broad and as deep as the tentacular reach of water itself. As Farina and Maria have noted on all the wonderful promotional materials for the conference, clean water is an everyone issue. And certainly it's a constellating issue for those of us working in Native American studies in fields as diverse as history, anthropology, philosophy, political science, environmental science, of course, law, and my own field, literature. For not just Indians, though, but those existing on the socioeconomic margins of American society more broadly, access to clean, potable water can be an embattled right, so fundamental to basic human existence, and yet so obviously a window into the persistent inequities that structure our worlds in the most literal, tangible, and often haunting ways. My own experience with this issue magnifies this paradox. Growing up near the ocean on Cape Cod, Massachusetts, the water, particularly the ocean, has long been understood to be the very lifeblood of our families and communities. And yet I remember being instructed at a very young age that I should never, ever, ever drink the water fountain at school, or even the tap water at our house. Our community, our town, actually had a U.S. Military base in its environs. And it was built directly on top of the sole source water aquifer that provides drinking water for 200,000 residents. And parts of it had become contaminated by chemical and fuel spills, the refuse of fire training activities, landfills, and various drainage structures, resulting in 10 what they call plumes, groundwater plumes, that are still undergoing treatment and extraction. These contaminants were first discovered in local wells in 1984, and by 1997, 13 years later, the EPA suspended military training on the base, which was the first time in our nation's history that military training activities were terminated due to environmental and public health concerns. Too little, too late, though, some say. The base had been in operation for nearly a century before these measures were enacted, and the health concerns for area residents, including much higher than average rates of cancer, will likely plague our families for generations to come. And that really is what this all comes down to, the health and the vitality of our communities and our families who are literally sustained by water. As many of you know, 19 months ago I became a mother to an amazing gift of a little boy. Without a doubt, the most important and centering experience of my life. And perhaps the first time I became aware of how vitally and literally we are all connected. I didn't expect to get emotional. I haven't really slept all week, and that's because of this little boy, but not only did I gestate an actual life form in my own body, which is kind of a surreal and humbling notion in its own right, but my relationship with my son was forged first and foremost through water. For the first 9 months of his life, he was an amphibious creature. I remember feeling so astonished by that realization. As humans, we can't survive underwater for more than a few minutes, if that. But as infants in the womb, it is the only way that we persist. What better reminder of the primal, umbilical connection we all have to this precious resource, and to the most precious resources of all, that it sustains our children. Thank you so much for being here, and I'm going to turn it over to Farina.
Thank you, everyone, for your participation and involvement with this. She'e bilagana nishle dokia ani bashishchin bilagana dashanale bilagana dashache dosinijani dashanale. I just mixed up my grandpas, they'll turn over in their graves. I introduced myself to you in the Nehbazad Navajo language. I'm learning this language, the language of my father and of my ancestors. I am of Irish and English American descent on my mother's side, and born for the Kia'ani Towering House clan on my father's side. And his father was Sinajini, black-streaked woods people. This part of my identity has really shaped my career and my studies, and why I was motivated to work with amazing people here and our guests who have traveled, journeyed far distances to come share their experiences and perspectives with you. I moved here to Dartmouth last August, and only a couple days after moving here, I learned about the Gold King Mine wastewater spill, where 3 million gallons of toxic sludge was dumped into the Animas River, then reaching into the San Juan River, which is one of the 4 sacred rivers of the Navajo people, and also sacred and very important to lands that live with water scarcity, do not have the same type of water flows as in other areas. Even living with my family in the eastern part of Diné-Bikéyah, Navajo land in New Mexico, they did not have everyday access to water. They still do not. They live off of bottled water. They have bathed in it, and staying with them, even taking a shower, you do not feel clean after your showers. And to find out that what had happened really shook me physically, and I almost had to sit down, and I thought, well, what can I do? I'm so far away from my family and my people, so I asked myself, what can I do? And as the Charles Eastman Fellow, I've had the blessed opportunity to connect to an amazing network here at Dartmouth with scholars, professionals who deal with all kinds of issues, including toxic metals and water and Native American studies and diverse communities. And that's where I was inspired to promote this conversation that people here in this area and in other parts of our country had never even heard of the Gold King Mine wastewater spill or knew about these different experiences and perspectives. So that was what set in motion what is happening here this evening, where we will hear from our keynote speaker, Vice President of Navajo Nation, Jonathan Nez, and then a farmer, activist, and leader, the Shiprock Chapter President, Chili Yazzie, who comes from a community that was heavily affected by this waste spill, and also hearing from Janine Yazzie of Six World Solutions, and Tommy Rock, founder of Rock Environmental Consulting and a doctoral candidate at Northern Arizona University. Janine and Tommy have been working with Yellow Water Tovitso project with the University of Arizona, Carletta Chief, and Northern Arizona University to assess the ramifications and impacts of the waste spill, particularly among Navajo communities. But we will first hear from Barry Lemke of the Echo Leahy Center for Lake Champlain. He is the project manager of the Voices for the Lake project, and he'll help us connect these diverse community responses and efforts to promote and protect clean water in our societies and throughout the country. First, before Barry comes up, I am honored and very grateful for the Abenaki drum group led by Brian here to play a welcome song, again welcoming everyone and really showing our appreciation for those who have journeyed from New Mexico and Arizona and throughout the Upper Valley, and those who are watching us on live stream from who knows where. And we thank you all. And so Abenaki drum group Black Hawk Singers before we hear from Barry Lemke. Thank you.
We go, darling, how long is not quiet? We go, darling, how long is not no war? Can not we, darling, how long, darling, can not see, oh, it's got. Sacred, I would say, I hold, darling.
Thanks very much to everyone who organized this important event. I appreciate the opportunity to be here. It's a great honor to learn more about our relationship with water and your work around environmental justice. So thank you for that. Water is life, and life is about relationships. Relationships with the natural world and relationships with each other. To honor these relationships with water and with each other, I'd like to begin today by taking 5 minutes and have each person turn to the person next to you and talk about why water is important to you. What is your relationship with water? So I'd like to start that. Please turn to the person next to you. I'm going to take the next 5 minutes to share why water is important to you. I'm going to ask folks if they're willing to share with the group about their relationship with water. And Bree here with the microphone, please.
Anyone?
Don't be shy.
Yes. Celia.
Well, I think our group was talking about how many of us learn to connect with water from being on the coast and the aesthetics of that, but not really knowing where our drinking water came from, growing up in the suburbs. And just came out of the faucet. And I think now we all are starting to realize nationally, certainly, that it doesn't just come out of faucets in a way, uncontaminated.
Please. Don't be shy, please.
I'll be back to you, Brian.
Hi, Nupolimana Joshua Yanapimatua. My name is Polimana Joshua, and both my great-grandfathers on both my mother and my father's side founded Black Mesa Trust, which is a Hopi group to help redeem rights of Black Mesa, especially from Peabody. And I've grown up with that fight my entire life, and it's something that is very important to me.
Thank you. Others?
I think those are...
Hi, I just thought that water is, it shouldn't come to a surprise that water is life. And it is much easier to appreciate it when we don't have it or we don't have good access to it. And I've seen and lived in parts of the country where people have to go to great lengths just to get it. And it's given me a greater appreciation for it.
Ya'atshe Micah Assistant Koheglini Daniel Zinisha Koheglini Nishlan Nashlana Bashishin Dashe Adobe Lagana Dashanada. Hi, my name is Micah Daniels. I'm from the Navajo Nation. I live in southern Utah. And I guess water to me, because it's a part of my clan and part of who I am and part of my being, it has really been a sustainer for me, especially here on the East Coast, being away from home. It has been sort of my grounding tool when I have anxiety or depression or anything. It's been my protector, and so when I pray to water, it's what literally gets me through schooling. And just coming from where we didn't have access to running water until about my freshman year of high school, so water in itself is just so sacred in terms of being a part of me and being a part of who I am and how I have come to be who I am. So, thank you for the time.
Anyone else? Great, thank you. Thank you so much for sharing these stories. As many of you know from the latest news, a Vermont community's relationship with water is at risk. The Vermont Department of Environmental Conservation has tested 5 wells in the village and town of Bennington and found elevated levels of a chemical called PFOA in and around a former manufacturing plant. The chemicals found in nonstick cookware, stain-resistant carpets and fabric, water-repellent clothing, paper and cardboard food packaging. The state of Vermont's investigation and response continues and includes testing in additional areas of the state. In a scene repeated across the country and over the years, people face a host of health problems caused by regulations that deem a chemical innocent until proven guilty, and an economic system that ignores the public health and environmental costs. We seek answers and justice, but no information, money, or punishment can turn back the clock. Our lesson, we must demand answers and accountability. But ensuring clean water requires more of all of us. In Vermont, we're beginning the work of creating a culture of clean water, something integral to Native cultures for many years. Lake Champlain and other waters are in trouble, and it's no mystery why. Humans are leaving our mark on the land. In recent history, industrial revolution, suburbanization, and farm consolidation have combined to degrade this vital resource. Enhanced technology has slowed the pace of this destruction, but has not kept pace with population growth. The results in Lake Champlain and Vermont waters are algae blooms, closed beaches from E. coli bacteria, sick animals, declining property values, and ecosystems in distress. The main concern in Lake Champlain and other lakes in Vermont is phosphorus, a nutrient from farms, stormwater, developed land runoff, and wastewater treatment plants. The U.S. Environmental Protection Agency has set a total maximum daily load, a target for reducing phosphorus into Lake Champlain and other water bodies over time. The state's responsible for this implementation to reach that target. Dedicated people have worked for years to improve water quality. And in the last legislative session, many stakeholders came together to take action. Farmers, businesses, developers, local and regional government, and state agencies came together, and as a result, the governor signed the Vermont Clean Water Act last July, which provides funding and authority to improve water quality. We believe it identifies the scientific and regulatory levers to improve a broken system. The Voices for the Lake Project is a faith and science environmental partnership between All Souls Interfaith Gathering and Echo Leahy Center for Lake Champlain in Burlington. We decided to support and build upon the important work already being done to create a culture of clean water. So what is a culture of clean water? A culture of clean water is every person honors their relationship with this vital resource, this gift. Schools teach students about the value of stewardship and the value of water. Homeowners create rain gardens and use non-toxic alternatives to pesticides. Developers landscape properties to reduce stormwater runoff. And farmers employ practices to maintain healthy soil, reducing nutrient runoff, keeping water clean. So we asked participants that we're working with to take a look at the impact of our behavior on water quality over time. This is called the behavior over time graph. On the left side of the graph represents water quality. High water quality is at the top. That says, I can read it, very small, life-affirming, healthy, thriving watershed, love of water. Those words in the middle are our goals. These are words that are from the goal of this work. Down the bottom on the left side of water quality is low water quality, and that's collapsed watershed ecosystems and economy. Across the bottom is time, with today in the middle. Understanding that we've had a relationship with water for many, many years. People in this particular group picked the 1600s as a time to start charting when we started having an impact on water quality, when we had a water-based economy. And you can see water quality decreases over time with industrialization and suburbanization. And as it approaches today, in the middle, you can see a small bump for the passage of the Clean Water Act in 1972. And then it starts heading down again to today. If we continue on the track we are on now, water quality will continue to decrease. And you can see that line going down fairly rapidly. What needs to be done? What needs to be done is the green line. We need a lot of action, and we need it fast. That is a very steep curve. And in between that green line of what we need to do and what if we don't do anything going down, that is the gap that we need to close with our action, with our behavior. Culture change is hard though. We've seen success with energy efficiency and waste reduction, where people are definitely having an impact. But these practices have direct financial benefits, and that's not always the case with clean water. Unfortunately, as somebody said before, it often takes an accident that contaminates water for people to recognize and honor their relationship with this resource. So in our effort, we took a systems mapping approach, where people agreed upon the current reality and identified opportunities for change. We interviewed 35 people who are passionate and knowledgeable about water quality, and created a system map for each person that represents their view of reality. We merged these individual maps, these 35 maps, into one integrated map. And the map is designed to create a culture of clean water. And I'd like to share this map with you now. It looks a little complicated. It looks a lot like the U.S. flight patterns map. But in the center is our goal, and the goal is constantly evolving, as is our network. And around that center goal are all the drivers that are necessary to create a culture of clean water. I'll just share each one with you. The goal is in the middle. The first is, to create a culture of clean water, you need to articulate the value of clean water. You need to understand the threats to water quality. You need to have solutions and a good return on investment for those solutions. You need to have funding to pay for those solutions. And you need to have people that are willing and able to take action to improve water quality. So let's dig a little deeper. When we talk about articulating the value of clean water, we talk about articulating the cultural and spiritual value of clean water, the environmental value, the economic value, and the quality of life and public health value. When we talk about the threats, we talk about phosphorus threats and nutrient threats, we talk about invasives, and we talk about climate change threats. When we talk about solutions, we talk about the return on investment for those solutions from the perspective of the agricultural world, stream channels, forests, developed land, roads, and wastewater. When we talk about funding, we're talking about public and private funding. We're talking about local, regional, state, and federal funding to pay for those solutions. And when we talk about people willing and able to act on solutions, that includes the quality of public awareness, the ease of action to take action, the perceived fairness of solutions, and the ability to enforce the law. So all of these drivers are necessary to create a culture of clean water. So we engaged more than 65 organizations from a number of sectors to test this map. Does it reflect your view of the current reality? Is there anything missing? Do you see yourself and your challenges in this map? We work with local and regional government, businesses and economic development officials, natural resources professionals, people in agriculture and education to all review this map. And what we did was we used the map to identify levers or opportunities to improve a broken system. And the levers we identified are some of those drivers. The levers are articulating the value of clean water, identifying solutions, the ability to enforce the law, public awareness, and ease of action to create change. Out of that work, we've organized into 5 teams around each of these levers, each of these opportunities for change. The Value of Clean Water team is working to craft messages that resonate with various audiences so they can advocate for a sustained funding mechanism to fund water quality improvement efforts. The Solutions Return on Investment team is developing a strategic plan for a phosphorus and pollution reduction innovation hub, which would identify, research, and promote innovative solutions. The Ease of Action team is investigating creation of a clearinghouse for actions and best practices around phosphorus reduction. So if you're a homeowner, farmer, a small business owner, a commercial developer, you have a place to go to find things to do. The Public Awareness team is investigating development of a messaging and public awareness campaign to ultimately achieve a culture of clean water for everyone who lives in, works, or visits Vermont. And the Ability to Enforce the Law team is working with the Agency of Natural Resources to explore comprehensive and coordinated water quality enforcement strategy. To understand the context in which our network is emerging, it's helpful to understand the systems that we have. So you'll see 4 types of systems. On the right-hand side are systems with certainty, and on the left, those with uncertainty. So starting with the bottom on the right, in simple systems, clear cause and effect relationship is evident to everybody. Right answers exist. The example is changing a light bulb. The light bulb's burned out, and it's screwed. We put it in. It's a simple system. On the upper right, in a complicated system, cause and effect relationships are discoverable, but not immediately apparent to everyone. More than one right answer is possible. An example is sending rockets into space. Elon Musk and Jeff Bezos are both taking different approaches to sending rockets into space, as is NASA. So these are complicated systems. In the lower left, a chaotic system is there's no clear cause and effect relationship. There's no point in looking for right answers. An example is a traffic jam or the situation after 9/11, sheer chaos. And in the upper left is the world in which we work, a complex system. There's no right answers, and we look for emergent, instructive patterns. The example is healthcare reform, reform of the criminal justice system, and improving water quality. So our emerging network must adapt to thrive in this complex system. Consider a flock of starlings over a river at dusk. This is a complex adaptive system consisting of many separate but interrelated parts. It operates on 3 basic rules: separation to avoid each other, cohesion to stay together, alignment to focus on a heading or a goal. So our emerging network is focused on our goal. We're cultivating relationships to be cohesive. And we will be flexible and resilient to weather the financial, political, and organizational challenges ahead. And we are open and accepting of new voices and ideas to create a culture of clean water. So thank you so much for this opportunity to learn more about your work and share our story.
Point one thing out, that date 1609 is the date that Samuel de Champlain, that the lake is named for, arrived in Bagambo on Lake Champlain in Abenaki. That's when it began. In case there's any confusion with it.
Yeah. Thank you, John. So just to make sure as well, we will have a question and answer at the end, and we'll need to have you on the microphone so that those connected to us from a distance can chime in as well. Now we will hear from Vice President of Navajo Nation, Jonathan Nez, and after him, Tommy Rock, Janine Yazzie, Shiprock Chapter President Chili Yazzie, and we will have the Black Hawk Singers play a concluding song with a Navajo Cayuga hoop dancer, my friend Eva Big Horse, and there is room for her up here too. So really, and we will fit in the Q&A before the concluding song and hoop dance. Now, Vice President Jonathan Nez from Navajo Nation, originally from Shanto, Arizona, now serving in Window Rock, Arizona, the headquarters of Navajo Nation. Ahead.
Good afternoon, everyone. Ahead. Whom I understand I should don't need. Appreciate the invitation to speak at this event. Bring you greetings from the Navajo Nation people. I see a little Navajo Nation red right there in the middle there. So my children, and I think some of them are outcast way out on the other side of the world. So it's good to see many of our Navajo students being here at Dartmouth College. It's always encouraging to see our Native American students striving to be their best, and also learning so that we could be able to rewrite history from our own perspective, through the eyes of Native America. That's what we need, and we want to say thank you for many of the professionals, the academics out there that are rewriting history through our lens. Let's give them a round of applause. I want to say thank you to Farina for the invitation and the songs, the blessings from the songs. You know, I got to get back to the Gathering of Nations, but once I heard the song here, I think we all here are a gathering of nations in this auditorium today. And yes, water is life. So you know, water is important to everyone in the world, but for Native Americans, you can see the importance of water due to the fact that communities in the Native tongue utilize water in their names. For example, the children here, I heard someone from Tuba City. Tuo is water in Navajo. Tuba City. Tuodnest is someone from Cal Spring. Tuo. I'm from Shanto. Shanto. Kaipi Tuo. Tuodnest. These are Navajo communities, names of Navajo communities throughout our nation. And we hold water very sacred. And at times, our grandparents, our forefathers, grandmothers have always said that nobody owns the elements. But today we see this conflict, this tug of war of water resources, not just in the east here, but also in the west, the southwest. And you know, it really breaks my heart to see many of our people become divided over water, especially now. And many of you know that the main stem Colorado River from Lake Powell that runs down into the Grand Canyon has been in this tug of war for many years now. But I want to say, you know, on behalf of our President Russell B. Gay and myself, we're doing everything possible for our Navajo people, our tribal communities in the state of Arizona, to get our fair share of water usage. And before all the states came together and amongst themselves divvied up all the quote-unquote quantified water for the states, but never allowing tribal communities to be at the table. So I think now is our time as Native peoples, as indigenous peoples, to begin to sit at that table and say that we are wanting our fair share for our future generations to come. I know I'm here to speak a little bit more in depth about the Gold King Mine. You know, President and myself, we've been fortunate, I guess in a way, that we are at the front seat of this whole traumatic event and how we're dealing with the federal government and those individuals out there that caused this, and how we're advocating for our Navajo people and protecting, you know, one of the prime water on the Navajo Nation, which is the San Juan River, which is a bloodline of our people. But before I go any further, I want to go a little bit more into water rights. You know, when water rights are being deliberated upon, it's usually focused more on drinking water. Quantification of how many people out there and utilizing it for future consumption. But many of you know that indigenous people relied heavily on farming. But the use of water for farming never really is the focus of quantification, especially when it comes to dealing with the Southwest. And so we are really wanting to come back to subsistence farming for our people. We talk about health, we talk about wellness today. We are able to take better care of ourselves. We are capable of taking care of others, and we are capable of taking care of our own people. And that's what sovereignty is all about, right? Having the ability to take care of your own people. Navajo Nation has 27,000 square miles of land. And of that land, a large majority of that is fertile for farming. The Navajo Nation has the ability to feed every single Navajo that is out there. And that's over 300,000 people, Navajo people. And plus, feed even more. And so we have to look at sovereignty in a different perspective. And saying that, hey, maybe it's time, if we are able to govern ourselves, to make laws for ourselves, maybe it is time to make laws that support that. President Begay always says, we're a sovereign nation. Let's act like a sovereign nation. And that would mean making laws that would say any produce that is developed in our homelands should be available in our own supermarkets within our territory. Just imagine if we were to do that. Fruits and vegetables from our own farmers to be sold in our own supermarkets. Our own cattle, our own meats to be available in our own stores on the nation. And I believe that's the highest sovereignty that you can have when it comes to being able to sustain your own people. People use the concept of food sovereignty, health sovereignty. We throw that out easy when it comes to congressional leaders, right? And say, we're a sovereign nation. But on the flip side, we ask the federal government for subsidies. We contradict what we're talking about almost on a daily basis. And so we need to begin to challenge one another, to challenge our young people, the students here in Dartmouth. And I can see a better future for all tribal nations when we're able to say, we can do this. In Navajo, it's self-sufficient, self-reliance. You know what? Tribal communities were once self-reliant and self-sufficient. And if we return back to being self-reliant, just imagine how an individual can be empowered through that. And I've always said, if you empower an individual, you can empower a family. When you empower a family, you can empower a community. And guess what, ladies and gentlemen? You can empower a nation after that. And we should be all striving for that. In every tribal community out there. Water is life. When it comes to farming, we want to be able to hold that as one of the priorities for our communities. With healthy foods, there will be no such things as diabetes, heart disease. We import many of these foods from different places onto our nations. We don't have control of our food systems out there. We don't know what's in there. But we sell it at the supermarkets, and we utilize it, and we take it in, and we try to figure out why do we have high rates of diabetes in Indian country? High rates of health problems, heart disease, because we don't know what's in our foods. If we are able to regulate and certify our own foods within a nation, we know what's in our foods. And we know how to regulate and certify our own foods. You know why I say that? Because each and every one of us is alive today because of our people regulating and certifying our own foods. We shouldn't rely on USDA and ask for their little stamp so that we can provide that produce in our own supermarket or gas station. And so I want to leave you with that challenge as well, young people especially, that we need to reteach our people overall to be more self-reliant, self-sufficient. And that's what sovereignty is all about. With the Gold King mine, you know, there has been a comparison with the Flint, Michigan problem there. You know, President and myself, we were at the front row seat and seeing this all happen when it came to this devastation on our people. We weren't even told until a few days later that this plume was coming down the river. Just imagine many of the farmers that were living closer to that spill, they didn't have time to prepare. At least for the Navajo people, we had some time to prepare, but it still was a traumatic experience for our people. 3 million gallons of water is estimated, but in other hearings that we've had, it's over 3 million gallons of waste that has come into that whole San Juan River basin. I remember the day we were told that there's a plume coming down, toilet-soaked yellow water coming down. I'm sure you've all seen pictures of this yellow water in media and pictures. And that was something. And we were just a couple, 2 or 3 months into our administration, coming off of a contentious election. And we were told that this devastation was coming. Be prepared, be prepared. And then we went out there, President and I, we said, you know what? We want to see what's going on. We want to see where this incident occurred. And within a day after we were told, we went up to that place. I know we were told not to go, but we felt that we needed to see what was happening. And so we visited the mouth of the cave. The gentleman there who took care of that site The EPA, US EPA gentleman there was very sorry for what had happened. And when we went over there, we said, what are you all doing to stop this? Because it was just gushing out, thousands of gallons at a time, yellow water with all sorts of heavy metals, all sorts of things that we don't even know at that time. And so what we said was, why did this happen? And then all this other information became public. We found out that there are thousands of mines in the same situation in those mountains there. They try to plug up these mines from spilling out these heavy metals. And so when they plug them up, it just builds up within the mountain, inside the mountain. And so when this gentleman was doing routine maintenance with his heavy equipment, he uncovered it. And when he did uncover it a little bit, and it just blew, boom. And that's when all that water came through. And there are many other caves or patches up in that area that's ready to do something similar again, into the whole watershed in that area. And so that's a concern for us. And we hold US EPA accountable for what occurred because they are charged with going after these companies to do the cleanup. But because of our laws, our mining laws, the federal laws, we're unable to go after those companies. So US EPA is the person, is the agency that should clean up and is supposed to clean up these sites. And today, almost coming on a year of the Gold King mine spill, we still don't know what's going on. What else is in there? We have scientists that are working on what's all in the water. High levels of all sorts of elements in there. Mercury, all these heavy metals still. Tests are happening, but as you know, heavy metals settle at the bottom of the bank. So when they start sampling these waters, it doesn't come up as readily. But we're coming to a season where there's snow melt off, monsoons coming up, that's going to disturb a lot of the bottom of the riverbanks. And studies have indicated that when these large these big storms happen where large flow of water go into the river, that it disturbs and brings back up the metals. And we continue to hold US EPA accountable. There was a hearing in Phoenix last week. The Senate Committee on Indian Affairs. We appreciate Senator McCain, Senator Barrasso for bringing that hearing into Arizona and to ask those important questions to the US EPA. But to this day, we have yet seen any resources given back to our farmers. And they're still devastated. And we don't know, still continue to know what's in the river. The panelists today have been working, President Yazzie here comes from the community of Shiprock, which was devastated by the spill. Janine has been working on studying the water with the University of Arizona, with Dr. Coletta Chief, our own, and also the Northern Arizona University. Then we have Dr. soon-to-be Tommy Yazzie, Tommy Rock, who is going to be a PhD soon but also holding those individuals accountable for what they're doing to our water system. And that's just one example of many throughout Indian countries, ladies and gentlemen. There's uranium contamination going on in a lot of communities throughout the United States into our drinking water because of past drillings for all sorts of elements, uranium, oil, and they're messing up the water table. And we need to hold those individuals accountable because that's our precious water. And that's subsurface. There's also surface water that are getting contaminated. But I want to say one thing, ladies and gentlemen, that it is time that we do these things ourselves. If you look at the panelists today, these are our own kids. And there's some of our own kids sitting in this room that are holding these individuals accountable. These are our own Navajo heroes that are out there doing these types of studies to contradict the studies that are out there that the US EPA says, okay, look at this, US EPA would bring a sheet saying that all this water is okay to drink. We have to balance it out with our own type of sampling and studies. And so I appreciate many of our own Navajo people out there challenging those other samples that are out there regarding the Gold King mine. And there is so much to be done in Indian country. And the Gold King mine is just one example of many fights that we're trying to fight the good fight in Indian country. But I want to say to each and every one of you, especially our students here, our Native American students, that we need, again, to challenge the norm and never take it at face value, whatever we are given, and say that this is what was given to me. Let's hold other people accountable. The panelists here are going to go more in depth on what they've experienced with the Gold King mine. I'm hoping my task today will be giving you a global perspective of what's out there within Indian country, not just on Navajo Nation, but throughout Indian country as a whole, and what the plight of indigenous people. Sorry, just checking if you're awake.
I work.
So, those are things that indigenous people are doing their very best to do and hold, especially our U.S. government accountable. And with that, I want to say thank you to the invitation to be here, and for our children that are getting their education, continue to do great things for your community. And just like in every community, they always say, we are always told, go get an education, or should I say, go get an edumacation. And what they say, come back and help your people. So with that, God bless each and every one of you, and we appreciate the invitation again to be here. So, oh yeah, thank you very much.
Okay, Vice President Nez. Now we will hear from Tommy Rock, who is founder of Rock Environmental Consulting. He is a doctoral candidate at Northern Arizona University, working on his degree in earth science and environmental sustainability. And we are honored that he could come from Flagstaff, Arizona, where he's working with Janie Ingram and other really great professionals and scholars on addressing the water contamination issues. And he was recently featured in the Arizona Daily Sun for working and finding water contamination in Sanders, Arizona. So thank you, Tommy Rock.
Gerte, Tommy Rock in Shiro, the 20 shot. I don't think this game of the things that I should done there. I changed that. So there's some better change 22 that should Jado look at and that should not. It's like I introduced myself in Navajo, and one cool thing about working with some of the projects that I've been working on or doing research, is that I'm fluent in Navajo, so I got a chance to talk to the elders and interpret a lot of the data, a lot of the results back into Navajo as well. And I'm not a Mac person, so before I crash the whole thing, yes. And I'll be talking about some of the stuff that we're doing myself and from Northern Arizona University as well. I'm the first in my family to be a doctoral candidate, so it's pretty awesome. I'm one of the first incoming class to this new doctoral program, so I'm the first native going through this new School of Earth Science and Environmental Sustainability, so that hopefully I set the bar high. I'll be talking about some of the water or some of the wells that we sample or that I've been involved in. And when it comes to sampling and when it comes to water or wells, you have to talk about regulated, unregulated water. Regulated water are the public water systems, like water coming from your home, faucets and whatnot. And then unregulated water systems are like windmills or wells that are not monitored like on a monthly, yearly, quarterly basis. And there's like over 120 contaminants, I think it was, that are sampled for under the Safe Drinking Water Act. So that's what I mean about unregulated wells. And a lot of stuff that I'm involved in are on the western side of the Navajo Reservation, and those little dots are all the wells that we sample. We sample wells on the Navajo Nation, and we sample wells on Navajo or on Hopi as well. So with a lot of the stuff that we're talking about, contamination, I see a lot more issues with arsenic. And a lot of stuff that I do has to do with abandoned uranium, because I'm from Magnet Valley, and we have a lot of abandoned uranium mines in Magnet Valley, and a lot of my relatives that passed on that were like my grandparents and other relatives, and so I got really passionate about this. So for me, it's personal when it comes to abandoned uranium mine issues, and when it comes to water issues as well. It's like we still haul water, and when I go back home, I see my mom. So I had to go and haul water or buy something on the way home. So I'm living that lifestyle, I guess you'd say. And so being a water conservative or being concerned with water basically is doing it that way, especially with my grandparents as well. And even nowadays, it's still like that. So the other thing I want to point out is, you see them little diamonds on the map? Those are public water systems on the western side. There's very few of them, and when it comes to public water systems, some of these public water systems, they get pretty stressed during the summer. So what I mean by stress is like they have to turn off those regulated watering areas of where people usually go to get water, potable water. So they turn some of these waters off because of that. So that goes into climate change as well, less participation, less water. So a lot of these people that rely on those regulated watering areas or places, they have to go to these unregulated water sources to get the water. And a lot of these unregulated wells, they're not monitored, like I said. So there's the issue with heavy metals like uranium and arsenic. And we haven't haven't been sampling for waterborne bacteria, so there's issues with that as well. So when it comes to water contaminations, this is the map that I made when I was involved with a research project from the University of New Mexico under Dr. Johnny Lewis. And this is the pathway of exposure from abandoned uranium mines. And the circles are all the unregulated wells that were sampled. And then the diamonds, the black diamonds, they're all abandoned uranium mines. There's like 523 abandoned uranium mines at Navajo. And the darker the color, that means there are more exposure. Like people, you used to get materials from these abandoned uranium mines areas, not just from the mine sites, but from the mills as well. There's a couple mills on the Navajo Nation. So they bring these materials back and they're exposed that way as well. So on the bottom, you'll see the TLE study reveals 12 contaminated water in Janine's area, the Newlands area. And I'll talk a little bit more about this, but what this map it shows, like there's no abandoned uranium mine in that area, but they're still being impacted from the past, from Church Rock and the spill that happened back in 1979. So it's still being felt to this day. And this is the project that I work on, the Environmental Justice Grant with the Long Lake Enterprise. And these are the areas that we sampled. And the areas that we focus are on the Perico River and the Little Colorado River. And we were looking at the wells that were within maybe about 5 miles of the Perico River or the Little Colorado River. But with Newlands, like one of our sampler was very ambitious and she's awesome. So she asked me a lot of questions about that. So she learned a lot from that, and I really respect that and I acknowledge her for that. So she got a lot of samples for Newlands area, Newlands chapter, and there's some samples for Huck, Lupton, and Manuelito. And we got some sample for Bird Spring chapter, Cameron chapter, and also Blue Gap chapter. All those little dots that you see, their chapters, Navajo Nation is pretty big. So we have 110 chapters. Each chapters, they're like counties. So when I say chapter or chapter house, they're like local meetings where meeting happens every month. And they'll talk about issues from the local to the whole tribe. And that's what the chapter meeting is all about. So when I say chapter, that's what I'm referring to, those little areas. And also, for this map, I want to point out that the results that I was looking for was uranium, and in this graph it shows the maximum contaminant level for uranium, which is 30. It's like that needs to be moved. Anyways, it's 30, and it's 30 parts per billion, and there's a couple wells that exceed that. And there's one community, Sanders, the public water system, that exceeded the MCL for uranium. And it's around the same time the spill happened, the Gold King Mine spill. So we had trouble trying to get more attention for Sanders area, and not only for the community of Sanders, but the elementary school as well. So when it comes to issue with water contaminations, the most vulnerable populations are the kids. Kids are the most vulnerable population, and then people that have health issues as well, those are the most vulnerable population. So when it came to this community, they haven't been informed about their water for quite a long time, so that became a real big issue. And with Sanders, the little red line is the Purple River, and that's just downstream from Church Rock. Church Rock is an area that have been previously mined pretty heavily, and they've been dewatering a lot of these uranium mining, and they were dewatering the water to the Purple River, so it kept on flowing for like over 20 years or so. And then on top of that, there's a spill that happened back in 1979. It was a big tailing pond, and and the tailing pond broke. So the tailing pond was more acidic. So we hear community members from the Church Rock area and all along the Crooked River where people have they burned their foot basically because the water was acidic. And they said, we hear the same story about their livestock as well. And with this idea, this project came about if any of the wells along the Perko or the Little Colorado River were contaminated. So we sampled a lot of these wells along the Perko and Little Colorado River. And with this map, it shows you that all the little dots are wells that have been sampled. And we're sampling for uranium, we're sampling for gross alpha, we're sampling for radium-226 plus 228. And there's a couple wells that exceeded gross alpha, but the one exceedance was mostly uranium. And you can see that along the Perko River. And the one that had the highest was 180 parts per billion. And the maximum contaminant level for uranium under Safe Drinking Water Act is 30. That's a lot, 180 parts per billion. And for the, there's some other areas that were pretty high as well. And some of the things that the community been asking them for is like, what about their livestock? What about their crops? And you'll hear the same argument or the same concern that's going on in Shabbat with the Gold King mine spill. So that's the community of Sanders. The elementary school is just north of there. We see the Interstate 40. It's just right off the freeway. And the well is just right near the Perko River as well. And that little picture is the wellhead. And I used to work for NOAA E3A with the public water system, and I'd never seen a wellhead like that before. So I was really surprised that that's the wellhead. You'll see weeds growing, poorly maintained. I think there's like a barbed wire that was keeping it closed. So I saw that and I was like, wow, this is in a poor condition. And also, this is the water quality results. And when we found out the water quality results for Sanders and the elementary school, I went and contacted Arizona Department of Environmental Quality and told them about this. And we had a conference call back in early June. And they're supposed to issue a public notice within 30 days, but they never did that. And that was issued on August 4th, I believe it was. And we had a public meeting in July. We informed the community members about the water quality results in that meeting. There's like over 100 people that went to the meeting. We had people from Apache County. We had, invited people from NOAA EPA, the Public Water Systems Program. And yeah, the people were pretty upset about being informed that their public water system was exceeding the MCL from 2003. There's a gap between 2003 and 2009, and we haven't get that information yet. And when we look at this graph was made by Chris Shui, one of my colleagues on this project. He's a public health worker and also have like over 30 years experience doing research, human research. And he's involved with the birth cohort project on Navajo looking at uranium exposures. And he's working with Dr. Johnny Lewis also. And he made this map, and it just illustrates how long the community has been exposed as well. And you can see some of the results. And the last sample that we did was back on 8/11. That's the Tulane Lake Enterprise. And then we have another one on 4/23 last year. And both of the results are pretty similar. And prior to that, from 1986 and 88, that well had been sampled. So, and one of the things that we're thinking that is these exceedances are coming from the abandoned uranium mine, but we need to go and test that hypothesis first. So that's one of the next steps, and also trying to get a health research for that community as well, along the Brooklyn River Valley. And when it comes to, how much time do we got? Oh, also when it comes to the Gold King Mine spill, we did some sampling back in, was it November, I think? Yeah, in November, so we got some samples over in Shiprock, all the way up to Fruitland area. And the last sample that the other community that we sampled was over in southern Utah, a small community called Aneth, and went out there and we got some sample. We got some water samples from the river, we got sediment sample, we got soil sample, we got a sample from the irrigation as well. There's not a lot of farming in Aneth chapter, so I think we found like 2 or 3 farms, but we got quite a bit of sampling in Shiprock, all the way up to Fruitland area. So that was a busy time. Also, just recently, this past March, when we went back out there, we got some more sample as well. And for the people from University of Arizona and Northern Arizona University, they got a canoe this time, and they got a chance to go down the Animas and San Juan River and got some more samples, so that was pretty cool. I didn't join on in that one, so I was like, I missed out. Anyways, that's it.
Thank you, Tommy Rock. Now we will hear from Janine Yazzie. She graduated from Columbia University in political science field, and she is from Lupton, Arizona, and is a founder and CEO of 6 World Solutions, which has the mission to promote socioeconomic changes within Native American communities, and also follows the 7th generation philosophy. Thank you, Janine.
Yat-e, Shikedo Shidane, especially to all the Navajos that are in here. Yat-e. As well as to all our relatives that are watching us over live stream. They're kind of complaining that this isn't loud enough, so I'll try to speak louder. So I'm not yelling at you. I just got a request to speak louder. Shea Janine Yazzie and Shea, Tina Janine Shlendo Torachini Bashashin, Nathlana Dashache, Dodzilkai Dashanala. I am born for the Tsinajani people, which is my mother's clan. My parents are Jackie Yazzie Jr. and I'm Laura Lee Yazzie. My husband's Kern Collymore, and my children are Solaris Collymore and Celeste Collymore. And that is how I identify myself, as a Dene woman. I want to start off by saying thank you to our Abenaki relatives for having us here in your territory. As I was preparing for this presentation, I realized this is the first time that I'm talking about water security issues in an area where you're not really dealing with the same type of reality that we are dealing with in the Southwest. And so that made it kind of hard to figure out how can I make these issues we're going to be discussing relatable. What happened to it? Oh, well, we figure this out. I have a presentation. So the best thing I can say is this. If we don't figure out our water security issues soon, the perpetuation of massive human migration out of their homelands is going to affect the East Coast, and we're all going to have to start learning how to speak Abenaki because we'll be moving up here where there's water. For my beginning slide, I used the image of a rainbow because in the Dene way, when you look at the Navajo Nation seal, the rainbow has been used to represent our sovereignty. And sovereignty is a very complicated concept, and it has all these different meanings depending on how you're talking about it. But in this context, how I look at our sovereignty is our basic right to determine our own way to exist and to ensure that that existence is in balance in ways that are meaningful for us. And that sovereignty has and continues to be under severe threat. In Navajo culture, like many Native cultures, our language, our identity, our ceremonies are largely rooted in the value and the recognition of the spirit of water. We're connected to our water systems through our oral traditions that tie us to the geological formation of our homelands. And I'm not kidding, we're our creation stories, and I'm sure it's the same way with the Abenaki. Our creation stories tell the geological history of our homes, how the mountains were formed, where the rivers came from, and what their names are. And it is through that power, through that language, and through that wisdom that we still are able to survive as peoples, and we continue to practice our ceremonies and our traditions. So when things happen, like the contamination issues spoken about with my colleagues and the previous presenters, you have to recognize that when we say it impacts us differently, we really mean that. We really mean that when this poison is entered into our water systems, it affects our prayers, because we use the water directly from these springs, from these rivers, from this runoff to conduct sweat, to conduct ceremony, to give and offer, blessings for each other and for our future. And when that's disrupted, and when that is poisoned by these type of environmental negligence and catastrophes, it affects our children. It affects the future of our people. And a good way to understand that is to recognize and acknowledge that everyone sitting here in this room, especially our young Indigenous relatives, it always makes me happy to see you guys, especially in places like this, that we're our ancestors' prayers. We are the manifestation of the hope that they held on to for our future existence. And as that manifestation, it is our responsibility to set that intention for future generations. And to do that, we must approach these issues in a comprehensive way, and in a way that is rooted in the respect for nature, for Mother Earth, and for all that she provides for us. We had people already reference that this isn't a Navajo issue, this is a human issue. And what I do a lot when I talk about the water contamination is I introduce this project, which is the NASA GRACE project, if you guys aren't familiar with it. And what it shows is how much we are overdrawing from our groundwater systems across the globe. And this is creating a human crisis because it is creating instability in all our institutions, our social, our political, our economic institutions that help us provide for ourselves and provide for our communities. And it's vastly becoming, the only issue that will determine what our future will look like as a human species. This is from the same project, and this is showing, the progression of the overdraw of the aquifers that sustain the state of California. And the reason why I use this is because California was one of the big players in the Colorado River Compact that was made to divvy up all of the water from the lifeblood of the Southwest, the Colorado River, that sustains all of the ecosystems and all of the populations in that area. And the compact that our tribes were never a part of and never considered in. So what is happening there has a direct impact on our rights as people and our ability to claim and to utilize the water systems that sustain that same river. Sorry, I kind of went off my note cards. Not only were we left out of this compact, but the later negotiations and infrastructure development that was created to create and nurture unsustainable communities in the Southwest were largely built off the exploitation of resources found on the Navajo and Hopi territory, such as the Peabody coal mine, which are here, and their mine at Black Mesa. Extraction of coal and the use of our river systems largely led to the overdraw of the Navajo Nation's largest aquifer, the Inn Aquifer. As Peabody used, up until 2005, clean groundwater, one of our most pure water source on the Navajo Nation, to slurry coal through 273 miles of pipeline to go to the Mojave generating station. This environmental injustice was shut down by the collective work of individuals that work with an organization called Tonajona Ani, as well as individuals that work with the Black Mesa Water Coalition. And we are indebted as people to the work, especially of Nicole Horseherder and all the people who've motivated and inspired her to take on this advocacy for just transition and for the protection of the Inn Aquifer, which she continues to this day. We're also indebted to the people who resisted the forced removal of their families from this location, because a lot of people weren't able to successfully resist that. And they still maintain that resistance in their homeland. And I'm thinking in particular of two mentors of mine, Louise Benally and Marie Smith-Gladue. I'm doing a lot of name dropping, so that I'm hoping you guys can Google these people and learn more about their work, because I would not be on this path and we would not have a future to continue to fight for if it was not for the resistance and the advocacy of the people who've come before us. I also want to thank, and I can see several people in the audience who will be joining these ranks soon, the young advocates and academics who are taking on this struggle and are delving into the complexities of the legal, environmental, and cultural issues surrounding these types of exploitative industries and the legacy it's leaving on our lands. Andrew Curley, who is a PhD, actually I think he already received his PhD, so I need to start calling him Dr. Curley, is one of those young individuals who has taken on that fight on his own and has largely inspired a lot of the work that we're doing. You know, Navajos, we have a good sense of humor, even when it's sad. This cartoon is done by Jack Ahasteen, who always provides especially poignant observations of what's going on our lands. And what this shows is basically what's happening with the draining of water from our watersheds of the Navajo Nation to supply the power and the water for unsustainable cities who use it for recreational purposes, largely. And you know, in our language, when our grandparents talk about this, they talk about the injustice of not having water to meet their basic needs when it's all going downstream so that the Laganas can play in it. Tommy showed you a better map of this. This is one of the threats to our major water systems. I will be talking about the Gold King mine spill, but I wanted you to know and to realize that the Gold King mine spill and the presence of those mines aren't the only threat that's causing the water insecurity on the Navajo Nation. In Tommy's picture, our map, he had a big bullseye right where I live. But it goes to show, right now, the focus is on areas where, and it's already a lot, it's already the majority of our nation, where there is the presence of abandoned uranium mines. And those are the sites that are focused on for cleanup efforts and for planning. But the reality is that contamination doesn't recognize our geopolitical borders. It does not abide by the rules of industry. It spreads. It spreads because everything is connected through Mother Nature. And that contamination will impact people who live downstream. So even though you look at this picture and you think, wow, Navajo Nation's under attack, recognize that we share the same watersheds, we share the same ground systems, we share the same weather patterns, and that these things impact other people as well. On August 5th, when the EPA accidentally dislodged a plug that released 3 million gallons of acid mine drainage into the Animas River, the Navajo Nation wasn't informed until days afterwards that this yellow plume was coming their way. And the Navajo families and communities that live along the 275-mile stretch of the San Juan River had to stand helplessly as they watched the river turn yellow. This sudden cutoff of their lifeline affected approximately 700 families who, in the middle of their harvest, lost their crops. And these crops mean a lot to us, because these crops that are grown in the area of Shiprock and Upper Fruitland are crops that are grown from heirloom seeds passed down through families for generations. They're crops that produce medicine and corn pollen for ceremonies. And there are crops that everyone looks forward to when we have our fairs and we go buy the squash and the corn and the melons that come from the Shiprock community. It was a wake-up call for us all. As devastating as that was, it opened our eyes to the fact that there are 11,500 other abandoned mines on the upper tributaries of this very important watershed. The impact that this has had on our children when they see this environmental, cultural, and economic devastation unravel before their very eyes is unquantifiable. And the reason why I'm getting teary now is because I'm trying to work my way up to say this, but when Tommy Rock finally initiated successfully the testing of the water systems in my communities, and revealed the contamination of not only the Park Estates housing complex, which has 162 housing units and families dependent on that water system, it also revealed the contamination of our school's water system. Serving our elementary and middle school students, children from Head Start to 8th grade, for years. I'm a product of that school. And my son was going to that school when this contamination was revealed. And me and my husband, being the conscious parents that we were, constantly told him, don't drink the water at school, take your water bottle, tell your friends, trying to protect our little baby. And he would come home some days and, Mommy, I'm really sorry. I'm so sorry because I got really thirsty and I had to drink the water at school. Exposure to uranium hasn't manifested itself for years. But in the conversations that our communities were having about this contamination, all that kept coming forward were stories of lost loved ones, of mothers, of fathers, of children that were dying from the cancers or the unexplained illnesses affecting their kidneys and their liver. And so what becomes the hardest question to answer is, how do we build a pathway forward with this reality? The work that I've been able to do is largely inspired and in a collaboration with some of the greatest water warriors of our nation. And I'm deeply indebted to the ways that people like Jacques Saran and Byron Huscon and Percy Deal and Nicole Horseherder and all of these water warriors from different generations have been able to sustain the hope that our people need to continue to fight for a future. It is that hope that helped us develop the Little Colorado River Watershed Chapters Association, which is an association of chapters, which Tommy explained, are sub-political government units that combine or encompass all of the authorities of local governance in our communities. And through that work, we've been able to talk about and expand how we look at community development based on our watersheds. That's to give you an idea of the size of the LCR watershed basin and the communities it covers on both the Navajo Nation and off the Navajo Nation. When we look at a watershed basin like that, and we're talking about watershed management and watershed planning and watershed restoration, it becomes really overwhelming because it's huge. Our connection to our water systems extend past what we interact with in our everyday lives. And that's something that should both humble us and inspire us through the interconnection that means for all the people who live along these water systems. So to break it down, this is an area of Hauk. This is the Hauk chapter boundary. We knew that we couldn't just even look at it at that scale because it still becomes overwhelming. So what we've done with the communities is we worked with our people, starting first with developing a vision for our people and for our future that goes beyond these top-down processes that are limited by financial constraints or what is the budget priorities for this year, and really looks at the long-term impacts and the legacy that we hope to build and be a part of. And with that, we start talking both about immediate needs and about potential development. And we break down and identify priority areas to focus our effort and to learn collectively what it means to revive our language, revive our culture, and to revive our responsibility to maintain and build a better community, to incorporate our own definition of sustainability, which our people have articulated as taking only what you need, but giving back much more than you take. With that, for Hauk, for example, we were able to narrow down their resource concerns and the things that we're seeing with massive erosion, the disappearance of springs, the disappearance of groundwater, the contamination from this Church Rock uranium spill, and all of these issues. There's so much more to a project area where they can have the most impact on the most amount of people and build up the capacity to understand and respond to these urgent situations affecting their watershed. And in this area, what we're going to be doing is looking at the flooding of 2 housing units. If any of you know anything about the Navajo Nation, housing is rare. So the flooding of these 2 housing units was causing health issues as mold was building up in the foundations of these homes that are being impacted, and people are scared about the health of their children. And what we're going to do is we're going to mitigate and divert some of those floodwater systems to not only beautify that housing unit, but to also go into the chapter feline area, the green area, to help them restore their food systems. This is the area that we cover. Our focus is on building local management by investing in our own people, investing in our own knowledge and in our own wisdom, developing a shared vision to create that unity that's needed to bring all of our stakeholders together, and organizing around that, and building a movement around our shared responsibilities. Because what we all need is a paradigm shift, and that's the only thing that's going to save us. We have to transcend beyond this conversation about what is the market value of our water and what solution will help us protect our profits. Because we have to ask ourselves, how much does our existence cost? How much does it really mean? How much do you value the future of your communities, because it's all impacted? And how hard will you work to ensure that we will survive? Through successful watershed planning, we can and we will create climate change mitigation and resiliency, but it's too late to stop it. The only thing we can do is evolve and adapt. And our cultures will lead us there. Thank you.
Chiliyazi is the chapter president of Shiprock, New Mexico, a community that has been hit and affected very seriously by the Gold King mine wastewater spill. He is a farmer, an activist, a family man, grandfather, father, husband of 41 years today. He came all this way with his dear wife, Betsy Yazzie, on their anniversary. So we are very indebted to him for coming.
Yate shite shidana at Mafuni Shashuna Twote Nasha Two Nishla Ado Adon and Shlinige Shinsla Do Tohetlin the Shida Tiani the State, what she made us another. He has actually ordered Tahil I want to pay homage and honor the memories of our relatives whose lands we are on today. The Abenaki and other relatives who are the original landlords, whose footprints still remain in these hills, whose laughter echo among the trees. I thank my brothers here, the brothers of the drum, for welcoming us with their song, giving us their blessings. Thank you, my brothers. Yeah. I want to expand a little bit, first of all, on what the Vice President talked about earlier in emphasizing the importance and the sanctity of water to us as a people. He talked about the different places that have water names on our lands. And this is the case with many other tribal peoples, the world over, I would imagine. My little brother Tommy comes from Ojetwo. I guess that translates to moon water. And I am from Two. And again, our name for water is Two. So I'm from water, living along the perennial San Juan River. My father's clan is Toyetlini, waters coming together as in confluence. And my wife Betsy, who sits back there, is of the Kapahan clan, water dwellers. And her paternal grandpa is Bitterwater. So yes, very definitely we identify ourselves by the relationship that we have with water. I want to thank Farina and your colleagues for inviting us today, your sponsors, and the hospitality of Dartmouth College. It's a privilege to be here. go back.
This one?
Back to the video. Let me go back.
Okay.
First one.
You want me to display?
There's no sound, but the picture story there will present itself. This is the Gold King mine spill as it happened on August 5th, 2015. And it's the EPA contractor crew that was able to do this little video.
Standing on his truck.
And they're standing there saying, what do we do? What do we do? What did we do? Let's get out of here. It's a short clip. This is this is Shiprock, and I bring the students from the res a little bit of home. Sorry I didn't bring you a mutton sandwich. In my life, I'm introduced here as an activist, but I stand here before you first as a grandpa, a Che, a Nali, and a farmer. Throughout my years of activism, since I was 19 years old or so, I've been involved with many different things, including human rights,
civil rights, discrimination, racism, and on to the environmental issues. And as alluded to here by the other panel members, the Navajo Nation is a wasteland that has been devoured by industry through the years. We've had to deal with massive strip coal mining, uranium mining, uranium processing, oil and gas, and the latest scourge being fracking. So part of my story I've written here in these few words that encapsulates the struggles that we have as a Dene people, those of us that have been on the front lines in dealing with these issues. You're welcome to read along or watch my mouth. Wandering, hunting, living, loving life, we were once free. One breath with the stars and earth, all that we could see. On life path of blissful hardship, where are we supposed to be? With blessed ways, values, and songs, we knew who to be. Columbus came stumbling, unleashing Euro colonist attack. Conquistador enslaved the people for God, gold, and glory. Mexicans stole our women and children, we hid them back. Eons old pale-faced war on tribal peoples is our painful story. Doctrine of discovery, commanded by the Pope, endorsed annihilation to quench euphoric lust to amass all the gold. Old world savages do genocide, imposing Christendom by force. Kidnap, slavery, disease blanket, long walk treacheries unfold. Scheming U.S. government complicit in rape of our lands, instituting colonial governmental ways to get the oil lease. Our grandpa leaders didn't see the devious government plan was to allow greedy corporations to dig up the energy beast. With whispered prayers, miners go deep into the earth, unsuspecting, unprotected, they weren't told of the danger. Industry's expendable family dying, uranium is our curse. Our miner men are gone, left us with tears, cancer, and anger. 50 long years of gouging out Black Mesa earth coal liver, half of those years for only a rip-off 15 cents a ton. Guilty, blameless, filthy rich BHP makes its exit, Indian giver. Smiling, sells dying mind to naive Navajo under the gun. 1,000 tons of radioactivity sludges down the Rio Puerco in 1979. 94 million gallons of toxic uranium water seeping deep down, contaminating our babies. The corporation continues to do us crime. Water warriors demand clean water justice. We stand in our ground. Thousands of abandoned, leaking mines, devastation looms, killing our farms, our future, our sacred lands, our home. King Gold Mine waste turns our river into an acidic yellow plume. Former ally EPA says, water okay, leave me be, you on your own. Borrowing unrelentingly, recklessly into our fragile earth. Cash cow, frack disaster, tsunami intrudes with U.S. flag unfurled. Redneck oil men reeking of booze, porno, drugs, and cash flirt. Desperately lusting after our women and our indigenous girls. Uninformed cash-broke families sign contract for fast cash deal. Homes and lands fracture, shattered by fracture. Poison flares light the night. Pressure cracked earth deep inside, wounds that will not heal. Frack poison leaking into aquifer waters is our nightmare fright. We say clearly and strongly that our earth is hurt and weary. There is little notice. People are comfy, don't seem to care. Riches by greed, scheming for more is American way and theory. Unconscionable exploitation destroying. Earth life end is near. We are earth, earth is us. We seed her and sing her our songs. Government bureaucrats don't see sanctity of sacred sites. Crap on, dig up medicine mountains or religious, sacrilegious wrongs. Sleazy playground on a place of emergence is no way right. Glaciers melting, ocean is rising, crazy weather ravaging, wildfires blazing, ground is baking, natural world is dying. GMO takeover, political selling out our water, aquifers draining. Cold burn, climate change is here. Earth is furious and crying. Our elders lived the beauty and happy times of life of earth. Now we see a future of troubles. What about our little ones? Child of earth, rise, sing the drum, stand to defend the earth. Indigenous must turn the tide. Weren't we the chosen ones? The picture there is of our San Juan River at home in happier times. This is the Yellow River as it is going into the blue water. The farmer momentarily idles on the ground under the welcome shade of the tree. The half-grown corn are happily waving at him in the summer hot breeze. The irrigation water slowly trickles down the furrows to the rows of corn. He thinks about his farmer status after his years on the government payroll. I missed that job, but I always wanted to be here in this hard, tiring, and happy work. He examines his rough hand getting smoothed down by his weed-killing hoe. He smiles as he sees his grandson bouncing toward him through the melon field. Shache, shache, the man on the radio said the river is turning yellow. Half joking, he says, my son, my grandson. Maybe he said the river is turning mellow. Not sure what his pride and joy is babbling about, they start walking home. Shache, yesha, we're gonna have a good crop this year. Our melons are growing nice, and our chilies, tomatoes, squashes, and our ready-to-cut hay needs one more watering. We'll make some good bucks this year. New clothes for school. I'm glad I'm a farmer. The wife is quiet, serving lunch. Finally, she says, there's contamination in the river. Visiting the neighbor, tending his horses. Yeah, don't sound good, Yellow River. They're going to give a full report at the community meeting this evening. Gotta be there. Our large chapter house is full of people. The concerned, the angry, the inquisitive. The tribal representatives tells us an EPA contractor broke open an old gold mine up past Telluride that was holding back mine wastewater under great pressure. The early report is there may be 1 million gallons of mine waste coming our way. Different kinds of heavy metals in the wastewater causing the river to turn yellow. There are thousands of old mines in Colorado. This Gold King mine was shut down in 1923. Many of these old mines interconnect. The buildup of water inside those mountains caused a high pressure release when the mine was breached, releasing a torrent of waste. Over 3 million gallons of contaminated wastewater is coming in an 80-mile long plume, moving 4 miles an hour with toxic heavy metals, including lead, mercury, and arsenic. We are confused. Anger starts to boil. Our elders have sad, misty eyes. This is so surreal. Nobody knows the impact. We don't know what will happen. The water is being shut off. I am frantically irrigating all the fields. Yellow plumes supposed to reach us in 2 days. Irrigating all night into the next day. They turned the water off too soon. Miscalculation. More and bigger meetings, government big dogs and travel politicals converge on us. Cameras are whirring, media of every sort stumble over each other. International news. What are the facts? Who's at fault? EPA whimpering around. Did the contamination pass by? Oh man, what about our crops? What can we do? What about the bears and the deer and the birds? EPA says, yes, it's our fault. We'll make it right. Navajo prays, yowls, we're going to sue you, EPA. Navajo sets up confused incident command center. At least they look and sound impressive. EPA buys semi-loads of hay, hires water transporter to deliver desperate needed water. Hires fracking fields water delivery outfit who mobilizes with trains of water tankers, filling massive black tanks that we found to be petrol tanks. Stupid EPA thinks we're stupid. Get these dirty tanks off our lands. We reject these frack tanks, trucks, and operators. BIA kicks in professional operation, sets up large water tanks up and down the river, trucking in water day and night from the clean water source Navajo Dam, Nappy Water. Good-hearted people world over, sending cash, prayers, and truckloads of bottled water. Thank you, but it's the crops and the animals that are thirsty, not us. Thank you for caring. Farmers, ranchers line up week on week for water, some with rickety trucks and old barrels. Animals are watered, stay away from the river, hauling water to crops in desperation. Test the water again. Water okay. Upriver communities and farmers using the water. No, not us. Near impossible to water all the crops. Forget the alfalfa. Which crops do we save? Damn. Corns are thirsty and dying. Damn the EPA, damn the government, damn the industry. Still scrambling. 1 month later, BIA pulls out. Navajo struggles to pick up the slack. Media's leaving town on to the next hot story. Navajo prayers still talking. EPA losing memory. Our poor corn has withered. Our precious melons dead on the vine. Life just ain't fun no more. We tired, we frustrated, angry. Brockovich is mad, save few crops. Somebody's gonna pay. Different testers test the river. No conclusions, can't say extent of damage or when it's safe. Government says farmers will get compensated. Payday time, lawyers licking their chops. Warriors, water tests okay. Res Pres says turn on the water. EPA steps out. Water must be okay. Bye, bye, bye. Is it conspiracy? We don't trust government. Unbiased university says it seems okay. But these heavy metals are long-term deal. Any complication won't be seen for many years. Who do we believe? They all sound the same. Maybe it is okay. How do we know for sure? Our great dilemma is, do we turn on the water to farm and risk forever contamination? We are torn. We need water, but we must also preserve farms for our coming generations. Farming is our life. Water is our life. This is our culture, our spiritual way. It's who we are. All we can do is hope and believe in our prayer. We will survive. Again, yes, we shall survive. The picture there on the left is, of course, again, in happier times. Picture on the left is their meat. watering what crops we can. We still are in a state of uncertainty. The water was turned on. The water is running into our irrigation systems. There are those of us who remain apprehensive whether or not that was the thing to do. We don't know. They're telling us that we'll turn the water off when it starts raining, when the storm comes in and there's turbidity in the water that will stir up the contaminants that have settled into the bottom of the river. Such a chancy proposition. But nevertheless, the water has been turned on. We shall see. We've had a lot of talk from government. And to this day, we have not had any kind of meaningful support. The compensation that's been promised to farmers is nowhere in sight. The alternative water sources that we demanded is nowhere near. And I present to you in this way to give you a glimpse of our world inside and dealing with this catastrophe. Thank you.
Thank you again so much to our guest panelists for sharing such powerful words and message to us. And I pray and hope that this has really touched each of you to act and move in your lives towards, as we emphasize, that clean water is for everyone and everything on earth. We are going to conclude with the Abenaki drum group, Black Hawk Singers, and hoop dancer, Cayuga, and Navajo Nation, Eva Big Horse. She'll come up. I wanted to also share with you a piece that was, show you quickly, I'll step out to the side, but a Navajo rug that was weaved by my friend and colleague Gerard Begay in the Phoenix, Arizona area in honor of this event for the blog contest. And he was inspired by a story that his grandfather told him of the fringed mouth yay, which is a part of sacred Navajo ceremony and speaks much to the connection between plant, life, water that inspired this work. So I will show that, pull it out here before we hear from the drum group and see Eva Big Horse perform. And now we will see the hoop dance. And I don't know if you want to say something.
Yade, shikedo shidene, Iva Blinks Azi, Nishe, Chetagahi Kuganation Ishla, Ashkadzo Bashishchi, Might so Seneca Nation Dasha Che, Kiani Dasha now. My name is Eva Big Horse. I'm friends with Farina. She asked me to come and share hoop dance. I live currently in Cayuga Nation territory in upstate New York, and that's where my mom is from, and my dad is from the Cameron community out in the Navajo territory. So I'm far from home too. I totally feel it. You know, this is a transition for me. I've only been on the East Coast probably 3 years now. But I want to acknowledge and honor everyone that has come together to put this on, and I consider this an honor for Ina to be able to contribute in this way. The elements do not belong to any one of us, and this dance is a creation dance taught to me by my father, Roger Horson. And the hoop itself is a sacred symbol to many indigenous people. If you look at the circle, there's no beginning and there's no end. So what I'll be doing is I'll be positioning these hoops to my body, representing different phenomena from the earth and from the sky. So if you recognize any formations, creations, feel free to applaud as we can collectively honor and recognize these precious creations. And I'm sorry, I'm just emotional because it's water that gives life to everything. And we can't really emphasize the urgency of this issue. So, yeah.
Again, thank you so much to everyone for coming and joining us, participating, to all those, our generous sponsors, our guests, Eva, the Black Hawk Singers, our guest panelists who have traveled from New York to New Mexico, and those watching us from their homes or wherever they may be. Bless you, thank you, and hagone, as we say in Diné Bikeya. Goodbye and good night.